Assalamu alaikum, everyone. Um, just wanted to explain. I've been asked to explain a little bit about this new coin we have here, the Islamic Silver Dirham, the new British Isles design Islamic Silver Dirham coin. So I'm just going to briefly, if I can, explain a little bit about it, a couple of slides, and hopefully will you know encourage people to get involved a bit more. So we have a new coin, the new Islamic Silver Dirham coin for the British Isles. And I'll explain why, soon why we say British Isles. And I suppose to really get the ball rolling, we should talk about where does it find this, where does it land, what's going on at the time when this coin now has been introduced, and to a little background. We have in Islam this thing we call, people often hear the Deen al-Islam, and we also have this word Millat Ibrahim, so we hear Deen and Millah, often interchanged. People talk about a way of life, what it means, a way of being, a way of behavior, and so on. And if you try and separate the two terms, you'll find, yes, that this sort of Deen is really that way about how we interact, how we behave, in terms of our relationship with Allah, our relationship with other people, and so on. And people learn the Deen and study things and try and put that behavior into place. And the Millah is more to do with the soil that this Deen is planted in. And of course, what happens is if the Deen is planted in a poisoned soil or something, we don't get something pure. So, being Muslims, we have to sort of put the Deen in place and change our behavior, but also we have to make sure we clean up the soil, the poisoned soil. And as we said, the soil where we find ourselves today, the state of play today, is that everywhere in the world there are banks and bank money, this fiat money, this paper money, this kind of authorized, it's given value. It's said, this is what you have to accept it. We have the mass global corporations, whether they're, on massive scales, corporations bigger than we could even dream of, with budgets and bigger than many countries. We have international aid. And why I mention this international aid, because it's not the flood relief and so on, something a flood or a hurricane, and people send aid to a country, which humanitarian aid you might call it. It's this aid that sometimes comes through governments and so on. And I think the best thing, if people could read a book by Dambisa Moyo called Dead Aid, it explains it in detail. And also The Bottom Billion by, sorry, I forgot his name for the moment. But that sometimes all this aid does, if governments rely on aid, they don't build the infrastructure of their country. They have big armies to protect them and big civil services where they reward people with jobs. And it stifles growth and stifles entrepreneurship. And it does with people too. And sometimes we find that a welfare economy sometimes does a similar job on individuals. Then we have exploitation of resources and populations. Again, often it goes with aid. Aid money tends to be sort of bribe money, and people's resources are being taken, and people are being left in poverty and mining's causing diseases and all these things. So that's where we find ourselves. It's all over the world. Taxes don't start. We all know, if you're in the UK, we could name 100 taxes, that we all pay, VAT and rates and business rates and national insurance and road tax and airport taxes. It just goes on and on and on and on and on, the list of taxes we do. So we're talking about a big society and a place where you're taxed to the hilt. Then we have tax havens, places where, the corporations, base their businesses in order to avoid these taxes that the rest of us have to pay. But also it's where a lot of this bribe money that comes from the international aid, it ends up in these offshore banking centres. And of course this is all backed up by the global mass media that spins whatever stories it spins to us and doesn't tell us certain stories. And I always tell people here, if you just spend a week not watching, if you're in the UK, not watching BBC or ITV or even Sky, and watch other even English language news, whether it's RT or Al Jazeera or something, and you just get a complete, even that Even though they're linked to this global mass media, still you get a completely different understanding of things. And armies and weapons of mass destruction. And I say armies and the weapons, whether it's drones, and I mean real weapons of mass destruction that exist and that are killing people all around the world and are used to keep people in check and to make sure that this system stays in place. So that's the state of play where we find ourselves. You could say the millah that we find ourselves in. And just briefly I want to mention, because it's something we spoke about recently, and I'm just going to mention it briefly. We talked about Islamic social security recently in a recent talk I gave, and I said at the time that really it comes from three things: Islamic social security in an Islamic model, if you like, a thriving, a working model, and it comes from the duties of a Muslim leader, in the sense that the Muslim leader, he is, as Ibn Khaldun explains, his job is to establish the mosque and establish the prayer and establish the currencies. These are things he has to do, and establish the marketplace. And it's this thing as the marketplace that we have to look at. That actually, why is it so important? It's important because a real market is a place, physical space, where anybody can come and trade free of charge. No taxes, no licenses. It means if you live there, you can come and trade free of charge, so you can earn a living. Which is completely different to what goes on in the situation we find ourselves, particularly here in the UK, where to get into business it's so much money, the rates and the rents and the licenses and the other fees. It's really difficult to get into business. So therefore, the Islamic, if you like, social security begins with that possibility of earning a living. Then, of course, you have the leader collecting zakat and distributing it locally to people, and then also administrating, if you want to call it, the awqaf, which we'll come to in a second, and also education. He has to establish real education. People have to know their duties as a Muslim. And then also, and collecting the jizya, which is from the non-Muslims would pay. And of course, with the zakat, I should say, you remember it goes to individuals. It doesn't go to building mosques and roads and schools. Zakat goes to individuals named in the Quran, 8 categories of people: the poor, the destitute, the soul, the traveller, all these things. It goes directly to those people, right? So so that's the first thing about zakat. Then, of course, the second string is the individual acts of worship. Again, if people know their duties as a Muslim, so go back to the education. If people are educated and know their duties as a Muslim, they know the zakat, they know they have to pay zakat, and they'll want to pay zakat. So again, we said, so that's the first act of social security. Zakat is collected and distributed to those who are in need, and only when everybody locally is satisfied, and then he's satisfied, does it go further afield. So again, zakat is not something that should be distributed abroad. As much as we know people need, and it's good to give charity and so on, it's not zakat. We have to draw the distinction. Zakat is a different thing with a different nature. So that's individuals' acts of worship, and also, people know that giving, sadaqah, giving charity is something beneficial. So people do these things as an act of worship, but really it stems from the zakat, and of course you learn the fiqh of trade. You learn how to trade in a way without ripping people off. You know that you have to abandon riba, which we'll come to. Allah says, establish trade and abandon riba, this thing, usury, massive thing. So of course, all of that is part of individual acts of worship, abandoning riba and putting in place proper halal forms of transaction forms. Then you have the individual acts of charity. And again, because we're educated, and Muslims are educated in the deen, they know the benefits of giving charity in this world will benefit in the next world. And as everyone knows, that 3 things that benefit you in the next life are the knowledge that you've taught people and they continue to benefit from, the prayers of your believing children, and also acts of charity, ongoing charity. So of course this means people would set up what they call awqaf, or waqf, where people will hand over part of their property, an orchard, a building, and they would make a contract with the Muslim leader and say this is in perpetuity that it would go on, and it's for this, to pay for the imam at the mosque, or to pay for this college, or to pay for this school, or to pay for this hospital, and so on. And the person running it should get such and such an amount, which could be their relative or their offspring, their descendant. They could put that in the contract. So all these things make up, if you like, they make up the Islamic social security, if you like. So this is a part of, if we're going to change that millah, these are part of the deen of Islam, but they also impact on the millah, if you like, that state of play that's in place. So we have to be aware of these things when we're talking about the duties of a Muslim today. And I know I'm talking about this silver coin, but we're getting to it. So what is it? If we want to establish, we just said that we've been ordered to abandon riba, to abandon usury, and establish trade. So obviously that trade must be free, fair, and halal. So free, fair, and halal trade really rests on three things, or there are three, if you like, pillars of it. One is the currency. That, without going into detail, banks are simply manifestations of riba. They are institutions of riba. Their money is riba. Okay? And this is not something debatable. It's just what it is. But of course, we say that with the principle of darura, just like if your Muslim is starving and the only thing there is to eat is a leg of pork, you are not only permissible to eat it, but sometimes it becomes compulsory to eat it to stay alive. So, but in this sense, if we are using this money, we should know it's not correct money, and that it really is all steeped in riba. We should have no ambiguity there, and we should be doing something to come away from using these paper currencies. And we're not advocating blowing up banks and all these things and demonstrating against banks. We're saying that this system has built in, inherently in it, is the collapse. It won't be the first paper currencies collapse, okay? But the bubble is bigger than previous ones, and it must collapse. It's just simple, straightforward logic. Those that benefit from it will keep it going as long as possible, as you'd expect. But it is not. Let's not beat about the bush. This currency is haram. We've had people, scholars for dollars, people, all these things who will give you fatwas to say this and that is halal. It's not. Yeah, and also, of course, the worst of the worst are the people who call it Islamic banks. Let me not start there. That is even worse. It's triple haram, because it's haram already. Then it's haram because of the deceit. And haram because they take words, Arabic and Islamic terms, and infuse them with another meaning. A bit like someone giving you whiskey and calling and telling you it's called lemon juice or something. So it's evil. So contracts, the big thing so that's currency and banks. Contracts is another big thing. What we don't know, and what often we don't get to, we learn the fiqh of the prayer and the Hajj and all these things, and Ramadan fasting, but we don't often learn the fiqh of contracts. And if you look in the Muwatta or Imam Malik or the Mudawana, these books, you see that half, 2/3 or more is all about contracts of some sort. It's these things of muamalat, these issues, not the ibadah, our transactions with Allah, but the acts of the things of muamalat, where it's our transactions with each other. It's a massive thing. Yet still, it's sometimes completely ignored by our ulama. They don't necessarily understand it themselves. They never got that far. And also, so sometimes it's really the people who trade who need to push this agenda. The people of business, the people of intellect in this other sense, need to push this agenda and really push contracts, because often we hear, we so many things about the Muslim society are really based around how people interact with each other. If we don't know how to contract, we don't know what a fair contract looks like, we don't know what conditions and what kind of terms are haram and which are riba, which are fair and which are just, and how to settle disputes, then how can we establish halal trade? And remember, bearing in mind, Allah said, establish trade and abandon riba. And this thing, riba, where it says, He and His Messenger declare war on riba. So it's a massive thing. So obviously establishing halal trade must also be a massive thing. So we said to do this, currency, contracts, markets. And we said markets need to be free, fair and open. And so we have to come up with a model. The thinkers amongst us, the activists amongst the Muslims, need to come up with models of how to have free markets. They would transform towns. They would transform cities if the people of the city were able to come and trade free of charge in these massive market shopping centres, they could be just like the big, massive shopping centres now, but instead of 100 shops, you've got 1,000 traders, or 200 shops, you've got 2,000 traders. Big ones, small ones. And yes, there are models to do it. You can still pay for the travel, the parking, and the storage and the warehousing. But we have to come up, our thinkers amongst the Muslims have to come up with this and explain it to people and make the models. And it's sellable. All these people, all these things, you speak about it to anybody who wants good for their city, Muslim or non-Muslim, and they will understand it. So, currency contracts markets. And of course, we're dealing with the currency at the moment. So we're dealing with this silver currency, this British silver dirham, and of course, it's twinned with the gold dinar, Islamic gold dinar. But today we're talking about the dirham, this dirham coin, and just quickly to talk what makes gold and silver an ideal currency. I won't go into too much detail, but it's because mainly they have their own practical use. They have their own value. They are useful for something. Whether it's in industry, with jewelry, in health, as a conductor, as all these things, as a commodity in that sense. A storage of wealth, always for maintaining your spending power. Not so much as an investment, but it works as an investment, simply because it does better as an investment than other things which call themselves an investment, but actually gold and silver tend to do better, but have done better historically over so many years. And obviously as a currency, traditionally always used as a currency for different reasons, which I won't go into detail here. So just a little bit of understanding here for people. If I haven't got my mouse working here, but if let me just go through from the bottom. You see there's a yellow line, which is really the scrap value. It represents the scrap value that if you go to a jewelry shop or somewhere and people say cash for gold or silver, that's really what it's showing you. That is the bottom price. That's what people will pay you for your scrap gold or silver. The line above that, the red line, is what we call the spot price. It represents the spot price. It's what the price you see issued all the time. The price of gold or silver has gone up or down. It's that price. It's so many dollars per gram, whatever it is, or an ounce. It's that spot price that's issued, right? And it goes up and down, and it's decided by the LBMA in the UK, in London, every day, twice a day for gold, once a day for silver. Again, that's another thing for another time to go into detail there. And the price above that, the light blue line above that, would represent, normally, this is a rough idea, so it would represent what you pay for bullion. Bullion are the sort of rectangular bars that people buy, and if you see a film where they've done a gold heist, there's always these big bullion bars. So bullion bars are usually rectangular, and you'll get them from a 1 gram bar, which might cost today about £40 or something, and then up to maybe a 12.5 kilo bar, which might cost about 400,000 or something like that, right? So, but the cheapest gold you tend to buy, easily buy, would be bullion bars, and the bigger the bar, the closer to the spot price you'd buy it. Okay? So that sort of big investors tend to buy bullion bars. Then you have above that the coins. A sort of green line above that would represent the price of coins, different coins, but coins again generally above bullion bars, and they have a slightly higher markup, usually because their beauty and the work goes into making a coin and so on. And there's some authority behind the coins. So the green line, the green line represents the coins, generally for coins. And it depends on the coin and who issued the coin, where it's made, gold or silver. The size of the coin, because you have different denominations, and again, it's cheaper to make a big coin, but of course, coins by their nature have to be relatively small, and in fact, the dirham is probably one of the most smallest and most practical coins to have. And then the very top line would be the price of jewelry. So you see the jewelry is way above. Jewelry is nothing to do with the bullion price as such. The spot price is just way above, doing its own thing as jewelry. So just take away the jewelry one. It's not interesting to us, if you like. And if we take away the the spot prices you see there. In fact, that bullion price is probably when we redeem the coins, we sell our coins. When we repurchase them, rather than pay the scrap price, we tend to pay something much closer to the bullion price, well above the spot price. And that's the thing about coins. Coins are linked to the issuing authority, and so so it makes a huge difference as opposed to bullion. So as I mentioned, there are two coins that are different denominations of each of the coins, but generally speaking, we're talking about the Islamic gold dinar and the Islamic silver dirham. And the gold dinar, 22 karat gold, it's made at the moment. And traditionally, it's always been made with it's as pure as it could be. It was normally made, and often it would be 22 karat, 18 karat, even whatever sort of came out. They weren't so specific about how pure it was. 22 karat is traditionally now used for coins because of the additional strength it's given, and we've gone with the 22 karat gold coin. The Islamic silver dirham is fine silver, silver being a much tougher material. Fine silver meaning basically pure silver. Call it 999, which is it's probably impurer than that, to be honest. But, and officially 2.975 grams, and it's normally minted to 3 grams. To be honest, it's normally minted to 3 grams. And the traditional ratio, if you're doing both dinars and dirhams, they go together, is that 7 dinars was weighed the same as 10 dirhams. So there's always a correlation between the issuing of dinars and dirhams. And if anybody's... Sometimes you have people jump on the bandwagon because of the brand of the gold dinar and gold dirham. They're not really interested in this side of it. And also the real point about these coins is really for trade, but more so for zakat, the Islamic pillar of zakat, collecting and distributing zakat. A whole other story, but really it should be in gold and silver. And it's possible to do it in gold and silver and dinars and dirhams, so it should be done. And of course, what we need to do is get more and more shops accepting it for payment of goods and services. So there's the dinar and the dirham. So this is it, the new silver dirham. Just to talk about what's on there. The British Isles, we have authority here, Amir Adnan, based up in Leeds at the moment, is behind the coin, and here where I live in Norwich, Amir Jamal, who have backed the coin. Hasn't got their name on it, but they backed the coin, and in a sense, the area we're covering, we say it's the British Isles, that kind of English-speaking Europe, and why it's good that it's got the British Isles and not just Britain and Northern Ireland, as it were, because actually we're not really interested in national brand nation states. We're not trying to reinforce the nation state, but we're saying this area is where we expect the coin to be used mostly, and it was really produced for that reason. The motto: let the marketplace be free of unjust taxes. Enough said. It's what we're about. The 8-pointed stars traditionally been used in lots of Islamic calligraphy and art and so on, and other things have been said about it. The World Islamic Mint logo. The World Islamic Mint was really to show we've accepted their standard, just to give people sort of faith in the coin, as it were, that we're not reinventing it. Well, there's no need for it. So we've united with other people supporting the World Islamic Mint, their standards. The 2.975 grams fine silver, etc., and so on. So we don't mind that. The dirham is the denomination, and the dirham comes in generally 1s, 5s, and 10s. We tend to produce 1s and 10s. The next coin we'll do will be the 10 dirham coin. But there are also 2s and 5s, and I think some have done a half dirham as well. The calligraphy, Arabic calligraphy, La ilaha illallah Muhammad Rasulullah, there is no God but Allah, and Muhammad is the messenger of Allah, which is the shahada that you say when you become a Muslim. And the date, 1435, is the Islamic year, 1435 after the from Mecca to Medina, and it's got the 0.999 is it's got the silver symbol and the purity, and the weight, 2.975 grams. So it's a lovely, you can see it's a lovely coin. And we hope that you will. You can obviously buy it from the Iron Gold if you don't know anybody near you. Check the Iron Gold website, ayngold.com, and you can order coins from there. And we also want people to, if you're in business, if you have a business, whether you you sell goods or services, really we want you to register using this link here. I hope you can see the link. I can't even read it. https dmcconsultancy.woofu.com/form/q53swhg0qk4379. Is that a 0 or a O? And yes, we want people to really, this is our drive now. You have things like the Brixton pound, the Totnes pound, you have the Ithaca, all these places, these alternative currencies that people put out. They're generally paper and they're generally linked to the pound. So in fact, they'll crash just before the pound does. They'll be the ones that stop being used first. So we want to put this in the mix. Put the silver dirham in the mix as an alternative currency. People start accepting it as a token. For example, today it's the acceptance price would be £4 if you're a shop. You accept it as £4. We would say minimum. We would say make it a minimum transaction fee of 1 dirham. Don't be trying to give change from it at this moment. Just confuses it. And if you come and redeem it back with us, straight away on the same day, the transaction fee will be 50p. You'll lose 50p if you like, a bit like taking a debit card. However, we will be issuing soon a big directory. We hope that you'll, rather than return it, you'll actually start spending it in other shops for the same amount of money. And we also hope that if you're a Muslim, you'll use it to pay zakat. And of course, if you hold on to it, and as the price of silver goes up, then of course the value of this goes up as well. So again, less reason for you to keep changing. We want to keep it in circulation. Our aim is to get silver in people's pockets. And we're not worried that it's, if anybody wants to come with another silver coin, we'll support it. It doesn't have to be the Islamic Silver Dirham. But we're not shy to say it's through being Muslim we've come to this. And because of the zakat, it's good for us if it's in circulation as well. So it's no, but it's not all about the denomination and being the Islamic Silver Dirham. We're behind any currency of its own intrinsic value, of real currencies with real value, then we'll support it. So may Allah give us success. And I really hope that you will take this big step to abandon riba, establish the halal trade, to establish zakat, and you take on and support the Islamic Silver Dirham. Assalamu alaikum. And just to leave you with there you go. I was talking about the website. If you contact us, send us an email or telephone, and these two brochures we use. One is about iron gold and the way you can buy the coins from, and other stuff. And one is the rules for people in business, how to accept the silver dirham in payment for goods and services. And we really wanted to take off. We need a real big push to get people on the directory. So please give me a call, give me an email, any questions, and let the show hit the road. May Allah give us success. Assalamu alaikum.